Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for providing the energy. I still see people sitting up behind, so if you really kind of be nice, kind of forward, it'll be really good.
Please come forward.
I assure you I don't bite, so don't go away, so you can come closer, it'll be good. All right. Just wanted to know by a show of hands, how many of you are thinking to develop your own company or startup? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, good, 6. How many have already started with a company or a startup? Oh, fantastic. Student? No, okay. I want students. You are a professional. He's a student. Okay, so only one student, which is good. Okay, think about it. I want to share a stat with you, which is very, very important. KPMG came up with a stat, and along with the PwC and so forth. They said in another 10, 15 years, university graduate will actually, 40% of them will be doing businesses. So they'll be entrepreneurs. The staggering part with the 60%, the other 60% will be doing something. We don't know what the job market is, to be honest with you. So which is good that you need to be in job market as well. Because if you're going to do a startup, you still need people to work on whatever you're trying to work on. So it's a balance. So if you're late on doing a startup, try to do it. One of my daughters over here, she's still grade 12. Her idea actually got #1 in GITEX. So, and now she's going to be also taking the idea forward, inshallah, to making it a reality. So she's working on an MVP as we speak. I want to share with you the various way of doing businesses. How many of you heard about venture studios? Oh, fantastic, excellent. So we still have people over here who are venture studios. But first, I'd like to share some stats. I hope it's not shocking for you, but if it's shocking for you, these are realities. So this is not being pessimistic, this is being realistic for you to realize. 90% of startups globally fail. And this is average, has been there for decades, still stand hold, by the way. Only 10% of startups fail in the first 1 year. So you can imagine the number of startups coming to fail. Now, it might be very staggering for you to believe that because we only see successes. We don't know how many companies actually came up and failed. So that's the reason. 70% actually fail in the 10th year as well. And the statistics are even getting worse and worse. So keep that in mind, and we'll discuss why does that happen. There are various reasons why startups failed. Now, it depends what report you read, so the percentages will go variously different. And for those who are math geeks in the room, don't add the percentages, they're 100%, so don't worry about it. So don't start calculating. The first reason is the product you're calculating or you're making or bringing to the market, is it really what the market wants? Or you just bring in another variant and thinking that with that variant you'll be successful. So you have to be careful, it's very important, and that's probably #1 problem everywhere you go today. Of course, there are nuanced realities now as we speak. I will come to the reason number 4 or 5. It's the market fit. So that will be question #1. Why are you creating whatever you're creating? That's always I tell my people, whatever you do, whatever you work, even you're working, you need to understand why you're doing whatever you're doing. It's important, it's very important to do that. The other reason is the strategy might be not aligned to the market you are at. Maybe it could be a local product. It cannot be actually scaled up to the region, even globally. So that could be staggering challenges for you as well. The team, trust me, if you don't have the right aligned team with you, it can bring you down. So it's very important for you to see that thing. And I will share an experience that I've gone through myself. Number 4, which I talked about, cash flow. While it says only 16% today, for the past couple of years, it has been very difficult for startups actually to get the funding. I'm suffering myself with this. We have a lot of startups. One of the recent startups I started 20 months ago, we're not able to raise funds despite having a beautiful company, which is kind of 17% growth on revenue bi-weekly basis. Why? Because a lot of investors are sitting on the fence. There's no short of funds. There are about $700 billion of dry powder in the market, almost staggering numbers. And we meet a lot of investors, and we actually do a lot of fundraising as well. The recent fund we raised with Mubadala about $125 million, so we know how difficult it is to raise funds from the others. So it's a very, very challenging thing currently today. So keep that in mind. So that's mean when you start your startup, you need to make sure that you're really cash funded, and you need to work for the next inflection point before you fail and you run out of cash. So these are major reasons. The others are relatively smaller, but these are top 4. If you're able to do them correctly, the rest will fall into place. I'll start with my story. I call it, I accidentally started up a startup in 1993. Why accidentally? Because when I graduated just 5 years ago from my college, engineering, and then I met 2 individuals who already had a startup. And It was an IT company, had both hardware and software. And I was one of software guy because I was actually doing gaming. I was developing games when I was in my probably 8, 9 years old. It was very primitive, by the way. There was no ChatGPT at that point of time to develop code for me. I had to go to the books, find the books, what are the code, and do my own compiling to make sure the program is really working. So very primitive coding. Or basic was at that point of time the language. So when I joined them, they saw me that I'm able to develop packages in about 3 weeks' time, vis-a-vis the senior engineer over there, where it would take about 3 months. Just said, this guy, what he's trying to do, something definitely wrong in the syntax over here. So they came, they looked at the program and said, oh, it's really working. And not only that, I used to go do the sales myself. So I used to go meet the company, take the requirement down, make them happy about it, tell them not to worry, we'll make it the bespoke the way you want it. And the GUI was both Arabic and English. So they could, with a click of 2 buttons, they can switch from English to Arabic, and the database would save accordingly to whatever you type in. So it was like that. So they asked me, what is your secret? Why are you able to do it in 3 weeks? And the best engineer I have, which is 10 years older than you are, they're taking 3 months to do it. I said simply because they're using an older language, COBOL, Pascal, and using a 3rd generation language at that point of time, in 1993. So that day they decided, okay, why don't you head the engineering company? Exciting feeling at the same time. 21 years old, these people are 30 plus, they're saying it. Next day, following immediately, I didn't think they spared the time, and these 2 partners talked to each other. They said, look, we would like to invite you to be a co-founder, one of the co-founders, and we will grow the company together. I said, okay, that's good. Never know about businesses and so forth, to be honest with you. So I ran back to home, but we need to put equity. I said, okay, I can do that thing. I'll probably go back to my mother who had the money. My father did not have the money, so I had to go to my mother. Got money from her, tell her what I'm trying to do. She was very kind enough to lend me money. Took the money, started the company. We kept on going on growing, but guess what? We were not aligned in what we wanted to do. Remember the why I talked about? We were not aligned. The entire company, the software was doing fantastically well in terms of attracting clients and getting projects and getting money. Not because I was leading it, but it was happening correctly. The hard part of it, the maintenance part of it, and the sale part of it was doing terribly bad. It was bringing the entire company down in terms of cash flows, in terms of your profitability. Cut a long story short, the 2 partners were very kind. They said, okay, we decided to close the company. I said, you don't ask me. I'm also part of the company now, because given I have equity. They said, yeah, but you're 10 years younger than we are, and we feel bad for you that you put the money, and now we're losing money, and we lost your money as well, and now we have to borrow that money to give it back to you. I said, you don't have to give me back. He said, no, we owe it to you. So we had to shut the company down. So that is the problem of when you don't have alignment on what you want to do. Okay, so it's very, very important to keep in mind. So there was no alignment in business strategy, what problem you're solving, and internally as well, with your founders and partners, what is that we want to do, what we're trying to create. So that was a really challenging thing. I tried to find a photo of my own, all I could not, so that I can assure you the lady is not me. What she's going to call me. Okay, let's get to the venture studio models. There are a lot of models of doing businesses. You'll hear about incubators, accelerators, VC model. I'm here to talk to you and share with you about venture studios. I had the benefit to work one of the largest global organizations at Citigroup back in 1993 as well, where we had a venture studios. Mind you, the venture concept actually venture studios concept came about in 1995 by a gentleman called Val Gross. But Citibank actually already had something called Citi Ventures. Their job of that company, the KPI of that company was all about coming up with new inventions and innovative product. So come up with new things, like ATM machine, it was an invention and creation of Citigroup. The credit card, actually they were the first to create it. The credit score bureaus that we did in the US in the 1950s, it was done by Citibank. And so for GTX, call centers, and so forth. And they also had other things which they would improve upon. So those are the innovative part and the invention part. So I had the luck to work with them. So what do the venture studios do? I'll put it very simply for you, first of all. If you go to a venture studios, these are the people who've actually gone through wealth of experience in their life, where they have seen a lot of successes and a lot of failures. So when you bring an idea to them, the first thing they'll do, they'll take your idea and they'll beat it so much for it to fail. So their job is to make your idea fail, period. That's their job. And if the idea still succeed and survive the beating, that means this is a good idea to be with. And that's the important thing about venture studios. So we'll see the differences in a while, short while, a few slides from here, the differences between other models. So that's what venture studios do because of their wealth of experience. Now you'll see a lot of venture studios coming up. We'll touch upon them as well. But Those authentic ones, they know what they're doing because they've lived the failures and successes. Now, when you go to the venture studios, they'll bring you everything under one roof. So, examples. If you have an idea and you're not a good CEO, you cannot run it, they can run it for you. But the ideas, the IP will be there of the idea, will be with them, with you. So they will run it for you. Why? Because they have the ecosystem completely done. So they'll have the legal system, they will have the team, which is, will develop the full stack for you, they will have the marketing team, they will have the connection to establish with you, so they'll make sure everything is done for you on your behalf, if you don't know how to run it. But if you know how to run it, you'll become a co-founder, you'll be a CEO, or the founder, whatever the model is. That's one. Third, it's very important for them because they see a value in the idea. Because remember, they started beating the idea for it to fail, and they feel that this is a good idea, they will actually invest in it. So there's a skin in the game. And that's why the venture studio model are more successful than others. We'll see the stats on them as well. So they actually go and invest with you. So they make sure this idea goes to light and either take it to an exit or an IPO. This is what they do. They also invest in several ventures themselves. So it's not only one. Now there are many types of venture studios. One is the corporate one is the investment type, and one is the personal type we're talking about. And also not every venture studios will be able to address your ideas. Some of them are really, if they are really responsible, they'll tell you this is an area we don't understand. Let's say you come something on medtech. And if this is not their field, if they're really honest, they'll come and tell you, we don't know this thing, you need to go to someone else. So they'll recommend someone else for you. So you'll have specialized venture studios. Those who tell you we can do anything for you, you first need to ask their records. What is their track record? What they have been doing? Why do they know everything? It's very difficult for people to know everything. There are very few people, very few companies who can do many things if they are large enough and they are globally present. That means they have a large team. So what they do, they will actually have a team only to do health tech or medtech or fintech and so forth. So they have a specialized team. So that means their team is pretty spread. It could be people on the payroll, or it could be that they're working with partners. So that's it. So you need to be careful with them. We talked about they validate the idea and so forth, and they create the MVP for you. These are some of these quick stats. Why venture studio were, as I told, successful? So venture studios are 30% more successful than the incubator program, which a lot of us are familiar with, and the accelerator program, and the VC model as well. And there, 5% of them actually become unicorn. We all know what unicorn is by now, right? Unicorn, we know? Yes? One? Yes. Okay, good. Unicorn, when the evaluation of the company becomes $1 billion. Good number? $1 billion. Dream of it. How do you come up with a company, a great idea, and your value of the company become $1 billion? The company, one of the companies I'm working on, we're talking about Decacorn. Anybody knows Decacorn? You're a serial entrepreneur. Definitely you have a lot of companies, that's why you know all these things. You have a lot of experience then. This is going $10 billion, so it's even higher than that. And anything done with the venture studios, you have a higher success rate, which is 30% and above. Exit rate could be what? That you take such a maturity, you list it into IPO. When you list into IPO in the stock market, that means you minted a lot of money. A lot of people want your company. So a successful exit would be one possible of that. Let's look at the simple venture studio operation model. How does it work? We talked about, when you bring the idea, so they will sit with you. There's something called an ideation night. They'll try to come up with a lot of ideas. So you'll take that idea, they'll try to see how to beat it up, and what are the ecosystem around this idea? What other ideas can come out of it? So you'll be a rigorous of number of ideas will come. Then they'll try to prioritize these ideas to see which one the best work. One of them we were advising. See, I'm also trying to supervise. We have created the venture studios through Ministry of Economy. And one of the objectives is, and it's very important for us to know because you guys need to get involved, if you're not, your parents and so forth, what are we trying to do in the country at this point of time? We launched this program last year in October. It's called Thabat. So what Ministry of Economy realized to do is that for us to make sure the family offices are sustainable, we have to use them and teach them new tricks. Because family offices are the fabric of any economy. So family offices actually constitute anything between 60 to 90% of any country's GDP. So it's really high. And you cannot allow that to go down. But the staggering numbers is statistically, globally, only 40% sees the second generation. So the father or mother who came up with the business, only 40% is passed on. That means there is a loss of 60% of value, either because they've kind of made sure all the wealth got distributed, so it became smaller, some of them actually were demised. The staggering number is the third generation. Only about 16% globally sees the third generation, which is also very worrying. In UAE, it's 10%. We try to validate those numbers, by the way. So 10%, so that's mean, as a UAE, we're losing so much of value when we know as well that the workforce coming in from family offices is anything between 60 to 90% as well. So that's mean it's very, very important to preserve them. So what we did, we said, okay, we'll launch this Venture Studio program. It's called Venture Businesses for family businesses. We will teach the next generation two things. Last year, if you remember or if you followed, the Ministry of Economy have launched a program of UAE to become completely digital in the coming 10 years. And we can talk about that, what are we doing in Dubai and Abu Dhabi overall, in terms of the entire city becoming digital and creating a digital twins for it and bringing the AI loosely a word used and so forth. So if we want to do that, how do we teach the current, what you call family offices, the digital economy? Very challenging because they've been kind of known of the brick and mortar style, which is good, which will remain as well. But if we want to align it to the mission of what UAE wants to do, that's meaning we need to target the next generation. So the first cohort graduated just 2 months ago, and now we're going to the second cohort. We're bringing other family offices, their generation, and teaching them with the Venture Studio model. Two things come out of it. One, they came up with great ideas, and they were all in the digital economy, and now those ideas have been actually valid as an MVP, and they're going for investment round, so that's a beautiful thing. Now this next generation can go back to their families and actually take the learning to the family and actually steer the family to a different way, making it more agile in business which can be developed to align it with the UAE mission, which is important. So that's the ideation night. So you also, within the ideation night, you also look at how do you market pulses. So you check the market through a market research to see whether it's workable or not. When you go to development stage, after you do a lot of work in the idea nights, and you go and find how can I do a prototype of it. Then you do a research on your prototype, and you find out whether this is something going to be doable or not, which is exactly the business model we followed with the family offices in the first cohort, and they were up before graduation, and we took the program all the way there. Early launch happens after you get that done, which is as we have done, and I think it's made it news actually wires. When the graduation happened, during the graduation, the ideas were actually pitched by them. There were a lot of businessmen who were there, along with the minister were there as well. And before even they coming off the stage, trust me, almost 30% went back to these people, individuals who are next generation. One of them are fourth generation, and said, look, I would like to invest in your ideas because I believe this is very important. My business required it, and so forth and so forth. You see how impactful it is. And it's all digital way of doing it. And once you're in the growth stage, then you go to the maturity stage. So this is a very simple model of how Venture Studio really works. Very, very simple, not very difficult. I mentioned already it started with Bill Gross somewhere in 1995 with the Idea Lab, and this is how the journey has been. Now, why we have not heard a lot about Venture Studios for a long time? Remember I said the key word. Anybody comes to you and tell you, I'm in Venture Studios, and he's been only working for 10, 15 years, the experience could be there, people can learn, that's fine, but the experience is not as deep as those who've been working for 20, 30 years, where they have seen the successes and failures. They have the real experience, particularly if they've been associated with many startups, regionally, locally, and also globally, right? So that's why you'll see in the last 5 years, we have roughly around the world today about 850 to 900 venture studios globally. 700 only came the last 5 years, although the actual idea has been there somewhere in 1995. So that tells you people had to learn and to make it happen and perfect it, and more is going on. So I have a lot of friends who have started the venture studios as we speak today, and they're half of my age, so I keep on checking with them, what do you know about venture studios and how you do it? And they're very great people, and their intention is very good to do. This is a slide, it's a very simple thing for you to get a glimpse of the differences between the 4 models we have, which we touched upon, accelerator, incubators, and the VC model, and the venture studio model. The accelerator program, if you can just get away from this slide, is they're in very short term for you. So they're anything between, they will stay with you, give you that mentorship, or try to help you out for about 6 to 12 months. They'll invest something very small amount, 5 to 10%, as an equity. When you go to the incubator program, they'll also provide you extra mentorship, but they'll go for a slightly longer period, from 6 to 12 months. All these numbers are averages. You may have a longer period than this by then, or make it shorter, but these are the average numbers globally actually being driven. And they still stand, by the way. Then you have the VCs model. They're really called venture capitalists, and they're really, really ruthless guys, very smart. I used to be a venture capitalist myself during one of my banking careers, right? So it's very, very difficult to work with them. Their job is like this. They look at 2,800 ideas. They'll say, okay, these are the 20 ideas I'm going to pick. Very loosely, I'll say, look, I take a punt on these 20 ideas, but I know 2 ideas of the 20 will actually make it to exit, will compensate, overcompensate my 18 ideas which I'm going to lose, averagely. We still work with a lot of ventures, VCs. We still raise funds, as I mentioned earlier. We just raised $125 million. We're raising with a second round of Badr, and we work through. Venture studios, the beautiful thing about it, we talked about how do they actually kill your idea before making sure that this is the idea they need to invest, and they heavily invest. So you actually then have a disadvantage. You lose a good chunk of your equity. So be ready if you want to do a venture studio. So that's the only probably, I would say, disadvantage, but then you're a road to success much higher than the other 3 models. Slide, but different way of presenting the whole thing, same thing, but the most important thing, if you look at the boxes on the top over there, the VS model tick all the boxes, the others do not. So this is how it works. Let me tell you my experience with venture studios. We've been developing a lot of startups, founded, co-founded, joined. One of the latest ones we're developing, I was sharing with some of you during the lunchtime. We're trying to create an app whereby we have all your logistics done through one super app. What I mean by that is like, now we all heard about Uber and Careem. It's very much famous over here. It's how do we do car hailing and rental? That's one part of it. But you know what? Car hailing does not really make you money. It's car rental that makes you money. So if you look at Uber model, if you go online, these numbers are available online because this is the company. It took roughly 8 to 10 years before Uber became really profitable in terms of net profit. So it took a long time. So why? Because they relied heavily on car hailing, which is what you call as a taxi, that's it. But when you do car rental, which is a longer drive, i.e. you take the driver for a 24 hours or 16 hours and 18 hours with you, your unit economics is far more than over there. So that's one thing we're trying to do with that. And we've been successful, and we've been actually making a revenue of about 17% on bi-weekly basis for the past 20 months. Now we're adding to it the air freight. So you'll be able to do your air freighting within the same app. We're working on the stack to help that. We're going to add in the future the marine services. We will also add, I think my time's up, and that's why she's kindly moving on, showing me the laptop, the 000. I'll wrap it up, we're almost done. And and then we'll add also the long haul, which is trucking, and the last mile and first mile, then we'll probably complete it. Why are we trying to do that? One, because if there's an economic uncertainties in certain sectors, I have other verticals will help me to make money, which is going to be kicking in. Through this, we'll be bringing the fintech as well. We'll be also making insurtech for the insurance. We'll be getting EV cars in terms of ESGs. We've hit about 6, 7, 8 ESGs on what we're trying to do over here. And the main reason we're doing that, I'm trying to, I wouldn't say the word disrupting Uber and Careem because we're not actually disrupting them. We're known as the Amazon platform of mobility. Like Amazon, you come and buy. Amazon does not dictate the price, actually. It's the seller. He lists the price. The buyer buys. You'll always have for the same product someone who's selling it cheaper. We're exactly doing the same thing. It's not a bidding exercise, but you come into the board and you select the driver, you get the lowest price, and here you go. And this is how booking happens because we know there's about 99% of price inefficiency in the market when it comes to car hailing. Just to talk about ADGM and DIFC, sorry I could not put the ADGM picture. I was doing it last night. As I was telling you, I just sent the presentation today morning, but I finished it at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a huge things that are happening in venture studios in UAE and amazing plans. In 2020 April, DIFC launched the Venture Studios idea, what we call map. And the target was in 5 years, they'll come up with 20 venture studios in terms of attracting them or establishing them. And in the same 5 years, they'll launch about 200 new ventures. And 100 will scale up, and actually 10 will become unicorn after these things. And of course, they'll create 8,000 jobs, innovative jobs, and you'll probably attract about $560 million. Guess what? In the first year itself, and instead of making 200 companies in 5 years, they have achieved 238 in the first year itself. So that tells you how many ventures are getting built based on the venture studios. So they're doing a staggering job. The DIFC Innovation Hub is there, and they've expanded now their other offering, which are very good. ADGM is doing a fantastic job as well. I think now ADGM is doing much more better in terms of giving incentive back to the startup. We were trying to contemplate whether we should open our regional office in Singapore or Dubai. And someone overheard us from the Dubai Chamber of Commerce, Innovation Hub, because we were in a forum talking about startups. And they told us, no, you need to come and bring it over here. Don't go to Singapore. And as a matter, when we check the Singapore companies over there, a lot of companies are leaving Singapore and coming over here. Not because they're bad, but some regulations are getting a bit challenging for them over there. So that's why they're coming over here. So these are the general stats of the IFC. So you can see now, and within the UAE, even the venture studios corporate is really picking up a lot. Okay, because the country understands and appreciates behind supporting all the startups. So if you have a great idea, work on it. I told you about one why, which is we need to make sure why you do what you do. It's very important. The second why, please also remember it. Who are you going to impact with it? So it's why and who. Who are you going to impact? Which society? What people? Keep those two together. Trust me, 90% you'll do it fantastically well. You may go through challenges, which you will. It's normal. We told the stats how many actually get successful, how many are a failure. But you'll have high chances of getting things done. Be sincere in what you do. It's very important. It's important for you to make money, but it should not be the ultimate goal. Okay, I'm telling you this because I've learned it through a very hard time. Luckily, I'm at home where very, very young age, we were taught about how you're impacting your life. And every religion teaches you this as well. How do you make sure you impact people's life and not only your life? So with this, I thank you for listening patiently.